This is gonna be a tough one. Also, hold this duct tape. I don't care about the Huntress, but I've caught, explained, and annoyed the other 90% of the mains in this game. Sadly, I do understand why people like this killer, and that's got me in a massive pickle. I can't do the usual thing where I throw sand in your eyes, pretend not to care, then get mad when people call me a phony. She is effectively just Call of Duty, more Call of Duty than the guy with an actual gun, and Lord knows the Call of Duty player base is meaner than I can be. The Huntress is a very skill-expressive character, the kind where you're only going to get as much from her as you're willing to learn. The Huntress's power is very simple. You hold the button to raise the hatchet, release to throw it, hit the survivor, they go, ah, then you press render and it's on YouTube. I played her at release when you didn't need to do that to win. A time when, sure, survivors were OP, but they didn't really understand how or why yet. Just being there and knowing that the survivors were scared of me was enough to enjoy the game. I mean, we didn't even have a win state. Wait, what do you mean they took that out? So being chill and camping them worked just fine. The main gimmick with the Huntress is the pallet mind game. Obviously, the snipes are a thing, but this is what you're going to spend your time doing. You and a survivor are looping a pallet. When they get close to it, it can go 4 ways. You raise the hatchet, they drop the pallet, and you hit them while they're locked into the animation. You don't raise the hatchet, get smacked, or, and here's where it gets tricky, you raise the hatchet and they don't drop the pallet, then get to keep moving because of that. Lastly, you don't respect the pallet, they don't drop it, bam, new hit. That's all I have to say about the Huntress as a raw concept. Also, thanks for holding that tape. Alright. Today's video is sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends. Raid is celebrating its 3rd birthday, and for that I was asked to think up 3 legends that I personally want in my party. Number 1 is the Arbiter.
OMG, I love Raid Shadow Legends.
Who can basically resurrect the entire team for free, and then set her enemies on fire because they deserve it, while also giving everyone a 50% damage buff then healing them. Look, I played Raid, I didn't want to work for it. Then there's Killian the Lucky, who carries a handful of debuffs that trigger on insanely high rates. Fu Shan is my number 3 because he's a member of the Lizardmen, because I've always wanted a politician to be on my side for a change, and he can buff the entire team to move 24% faster, or attack 4 times at random while also decreasing enemy defenses by 60%, and he's gonna do a hell of a lot worse than that. And number 4, a champion I've been waiting on for a good long while. You! Because Raid is celebrating its 3rd birthday this year, that means you get the gifts. For some reason. We're talking new champions, new artifact sets, and fully personalized videos showing your personal achievements. Let's not forget that they're packing the month full of special events and tournaments, with tons of badass champions and shards to claim as rewards. If you slip your head and accidentally click the link in the description or scan this QR code on screen, you'll get a birthday package containing 3 free champions. Hold on, I rehearsed these names. Misericord, Tiger Soul, and Romero, plus 10 Magic Brews, 10 Force XP Brews, and 10 Spirit Brews. That's almost $40 of gifts. It's that easy, so what are you doing with your time otherwise? Gonna play video games? Yeah, exactly. Just open up the treasure box over here and it'll be available for the next 30 days. And if you're a new Raid Shadow Legends player, use the promo code 3YearsRaid to get access to $25 worth of gifts. Thank you to Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring this video. Anyway, sorry about that. I get carried away when I have a captive audience. Where was I? Ah yes, the pallet mind game. It's what makes up the zoning class of killers. If you've played Nemesis, or if you were drunk, Trickster, you've done this before. You loop it a few times and try to understand what kind of survivor you're dealing with. If you're real unlucky, you end up with the 5th outcome. You guessed correctly, they dead hard. Try again next time, idiot. The problem with me and this power is that I don't like how clunky it feels. Sadly, for a game that forces you to spend 90% of each match staring at a wall, they made the Huntress's hatchets the size of small children. It's a double-edged sword. The hurt boxes are big enough to hit survivors that juked 80% of it, but also any wall that feels passionate about joining the party. You're also limited to 5 hatchets, barring any keychains you bring along. To replenish these, you need to search a locker. Doing this mid-chase means a few things. It effectively allows the survivor to break chase and hide or run another mile, so missing your power isn't that great. Shame the walls aren't the type to give back. In the same breath though, I need to tell you that the Huntress is one of the higher tier killers. She's allowed to deal damage after the survivor makes a mistake with the pallet, and that is saying way more than it should be. Deathslinger needs to drag them over, Twins need to hope no boons are up, and Trickster has to follow up with 7 chasers. Not to mention that the Huntress has more options available to her. If a guy is W keying to the next loop, you can make the right call and boom, more damage. For someone you have to buy, the Huntress has the worst perks in the game. By far and large, they are absolutely useless, and not even in a funny way. One only triggers if you're bad, another doesn't trigger period, and the last is only useful on people who are watching cat videos while playing. The first is Beast of Prey, which gives Bloodlust the added effect of making you undetectable. Bloodlust is a mechanic in there to help killers come out on top in long chases. It makes you a nudge faster, but you need to be in the chase for about 15 seconds first, and that's not what you want happening. Long loops are bound to happen, but you shouldn't be relying on this to end them, especially when it's not that particularly effective. The 15 seconds reset every time you hit a survivor, break a pallet, or use your power. Being undetectable is generally speaking a good thing, but not for the Huntress. One of the bits I didn't mention is that the Huntress didn't always want to be a vagrant forest murderer. She was meant to be a star, meaning she hums an old Russian lullaby that is detectable within 45 meters and cannot be removed. The terror radius is there too, but all it does is let you know when she's getting closer, hypothetically making undetectable on her a meme, but the point is a bit more nuanced than that, unfortunately. Undetectable also hides your stain, the big glowing light in your face. Erasing this obscures the direction you're going and can potentially confuse survivors, so you're moving slightly faster and aren't as visible. I know you're thinking that sounds okay, which is why I need to tell you that this is the peak of the hill. At high levels, survivors are already predicting where you're going. The stain will help them, but they're already thinking it through and guessing. If they're that scared of it, they just need you to break one pallet to lose the effects altogether. On the flip side, survivors being arrogant usually don't flee at the sound of your lullaby, which doesn't get louder as you approach, allowing the Huntress to get sneak attacks through the lullaby. It's just that you lose Bloodlust when you break chase, and ooh, I think the hill is getting shorter. Then you've got Territorial Imperative. Whew. Grab onto something, you're about to hear some dumb shit. Territorial Imperative triggers when a survivor enters the basement when you are 32 meters away from it, for a whole 3 seconds. A perk that goes so far out of its way to do jack shit that I would only see someone using it because they hate themselves. The big issue is the 32 meter limit, which is too much of the map, giving this perk a 50% chance of triggering when they go down for the single chest in there. And when it does go off, it's way too far for you to actually do something about it, and the only time they buffed it was to reduce its cooldown. The only killer that can get use out of this is Bubba, because you can chainsaw and sprawl that 50% into a 100% BM in the endgame chat. I know people make a good case for Monstrous Shrine being the worst perk in the game, and they're valid, but these two swap spit on the regular. If you really want to defend that single chest, Hoarder is right there. The only other time a survivor will go down there is to rescue someone else, and you're not going back after walking away 32 meters, because if you cared, you'd be camping the fucking thing. Last perk. Got any tape left? You might need it for the screams. The last perk is a hex called Huntress's Lullaby. Every time you hook a survivor, the hex gains a token. Each token adds a small delay between the sound that occurs before a skill check and it appearing. At 5 tokens, the sound vanishes. Failing skill checks also makes more progress regress. So you might be thinking, the odds of seasoned players failing a skill check is about as rare as me uploading this much in a single month. And yeah, you'd be right, which is why I'm about to delete all these videos. It's the same problem as Merciless Storm. It's cool, but what do you think this is? Heavy Rain? You gonna play as Norman Jaden, tapping X to avoid taking drugs? And did I mention the hex part? As in, this is a removable buff, one that requires you to keep it in play for the same amount of time as Devour Hope, the perk that lets you instantly murder people. If you're playing Freddy where survivors are failing skill checks on purpose, you can enjoy the latter effect, but otherwise Huntress Lullaby is about as strong as the GoFundMe hanging off an otherwise funny tweet. I notice it, but I don't do anything. If you need the night and day, Behavior barely updated those perks over the years, but did give her an add-on pass, which means we can at least scream in the current year. Like this one that inflicts incapacitated when you hit someone with your hatchet, which excludes them from interacting with gens for 10 seconds while you're in a chase, and I don't know why they did that. I don't know why they did that one. You can increase how many hatchets you hold, giving you more opportunities to make mistakes, or chain together chases before reloading, or pull out the deerskin gloves that make you outright reload faster. On the flip side, you can equip real debuffs for the hatchets, like an exhaustion one, that pretty much screws over Dead Hard and Overcome. This brings the Fearmonger effect, where survivors become exhausted for 5 seconds when hit, which might sound like a weak amount of time, but exhaustion pauses while survivors run. So if they really want it back, they need to stand still for a few seconds. And Huntress has the glowing concoction that makes survivors glow for 5 seconds when hit, allowing you to possibly chain it into a second, if the world doesn't end by the time she raises her arm anyway. The Huntress has the most annoying red add-on I've seen in my entire life. Like the Hag's Mint Rag is hidden busted. Iridescent Head is tap dancing on your face. The Iridescent Head reduces your hatchets to 1, but in exchange, the single hatchet instantly downs survivors. So you get 1 shot. If it lands, Dub. If it misses, fuck you, suffer, die. Go to a locker and admire the hatchets. Shame they made it so that if the Huntress isn't in play, trickster knives spawn in there. But that guy has more money. The other thing lets you become a regular speed killer when you're out of hatchets. Oh right, I forgot. The Huntress moves at 4.4 meters, not 4.6, which isn't exactly enough to make a big difference. The add-on just makes you not pathetic. Probably good in combination with the other red, so that you can be broke but not slow. I know technically limiting the Huntress to one hatchet makes her a lot harder to play, but getting hit with a single hatchet and dying is enough to make me really evaluate what I'm doing with my time. Jim Jeffries made this joke once about how the population having muskets back in the old day meant that they're less prone to violence because, quote, muskets give you a lot of time to calm down. To that extent, I agree. The killer has to break the pallet I died on, pick me up, carry me to the hook, and while I'm on it, I have all that time to do nothing but think. Why don't I do something else? I know I'm gonna have a bad time if I stay here. The best result is that I die quickly and get into the next match. But what if the next match is also a waste of time? If I play Ghostwire Tokyo instead, the 5-minute ban will run concurrently. Anyway, yeah, it's balanced, but it seems cursed. Playing with it or against it, I have a bad time. However, they turned off MMR for a single day last week. So all these people you're looking at here were being made to deal with that unfairness on 10 times the level. And I still fucking whiffed it. If you're the type to run out of hatchets while using this, or anything else for that matter, just run Iron Maiden or the add-on that lets you reload faster. Yeah, that's my transition and you're gonna live with it. This perk lets you open lockers faster and expose survivors when they leave a locker for 30 seconds. It's a niche perk, though after running it for so long, the idea of watching the Huntress's reload animations when it's not equipped became very mind-numbing. Hypothetically, if you land your shots, you shouldn't need this because reloading mid-chase isn't the brightest. But that's only if you're going against the W gamers. Dum-dums will sit there and wait for the loop to proceed, like a little snack break where we both calm down a bit. Another perk I'd tell you to use is I'm All Ears. This perk reveals survivors after they perform a fast action in your presence. This lets you line up a good shot after they vault a window, and nail them easier as a result. Just remember that the world hates you and you need to scream before you throw every hatchet. If you're new to the Huntress, or playing on console like the loser I am, I recommend Zanshin Tactics. I also passionately recommend this on the artist, but I didn't think about it at the time I was making that video, so do that right now. Zanshin Tactics reveals the auras of windows and pallets near you and goes on cooldown after you land a blow. Hypothetically, this is pretty useless for most killers, but Huntress relying on the 4-prong mind game, if you know where the threats are, you can wind up the hatchets in advance. And, again, if you're a loser like me and miss the hatchet anyway, I recommend Coup de Grace. This perk gives you a token every time a generator is completed. When you have a token in your possession, you can use it to increase the range of your next lunging attack. Generally speaking, this perk is awful. Not Huntress level awful, but awful. Huntress makes an exception because she doesn't rely on her basic attack very much, allowing you to both preserve the tokens and use them at unexpected moments. And prepare to hear me bring this one up quite often, because I like this perk on pretty much every killer that fits that requirement. The final perk I might toss in is Lethal Pursuer. Sort of. This perk is very cut and dry. You see everyone's aura at the start of the match for almost 10 seconds. If you get any open map like the farm, you can pull out your old math skills and lob a hatchet at them from far away. I can't do that. I got passed in math class out of pity. But the person watching this can do anything. It's not too late. Text her. So with all this in mind, how do you play the Huntress? Well, it's a lot of trial, error, and mind games. I mentioned the walls catching your hatchets a lot, but even on loops where the walls are chest high, the survivors can still duck under them. I mean, they get a lot of notice since winding up the hatchet starts with the killer taking a deep Russian breath, holding it for a few seconds, and ending with a schwing sound. Also keep in mind that survivors have been playing against the Huntress for a hot while. They know what you want to do. Your goal is to lock them into animations, then punish them. So sometimes instead of vaulting a window where you guarantee a hit, they scramble around your legs like little rats. You are slower while holding the hatchet, but if this is a place like, say, the Killer Shack, if you miss, they're going to be able to make that extra bit of safety. Obviously, this gets tough if you're on console. Sensitivity is lower, and they don't even think you can hit a Torbjorn turret with that. Not that much harder, mind you. You're relying mostly on the X-axis rather than the Y. Verticality comes into play if you're using Lethal Pursuer and accounting for the drop-off, though normally, the small children are lobbed at point-blank range. And if you're really good, that Twitch stream of yours will finally get the clips it deserves. Remember to hire that dude to show your name in an ultra-cool editing intro, with the EDM screeching in the viewer's ears, rooting for you people all the way, I promise. I don't want to step on your psychopath toes. Remember that time people were mad at Turning Red because the gang didn't say Fuzzy Pickles when the second plane hit? Personally, I just don't like her because I don't have much to like at all. No shade, I promise. How I win with her comes 90% down to how I throw the hatchets. If I miss, I lose. If I hit, I win. My favorite killers are ones like Plague or Nemesis, who have multiple different facets of their kits. And as much as I made fun of those killers who zone with extra steps, at least it's more than step 1, 2, and 3. And that's pretty much the end of it. As I whittle down the list of killers, I find myself accidentally saving all the ones I find boring. So as much as I've been blowing this one off, it's finally done. You still got that tape? I'm gonna put this achievement on the fridge.